Hey, what's up, and welcome to Hot Takes, the show where I go through the comment section and hear what you guys are saying and have a little bit of a deeper conversation here. Tracy with the first comment says, I think the quarterback competition or quarterback position will settle down into a rhythm once the season starts. The running backs and wide receivers are my bigger concern. We really need Sampson and Ford to step up, plus any UDFA that might make it through the round of camp cuts. As I don't see Judkins being able to help the team this season, Tillman and Thrash need to provide a solid 2 and 3 wide receiver opposite of Judy, and I have no faith in Johnson providing that solid second wide receiver role. If he even makes the team. I have high hopes for this offense until Judkins got arrested, but if Sampson and Ford can produce in camp in the preseason, we won't miss Judkins that much. I think it really depends on like what's going to happen with him, how are the Browns going to treat this, and what that means. Because there's really nobody on the roster right now that can replace fulfilling the role that Judkins was there for, and the role that Judkins is being asked to fill is a fairly significant one, right? Like part of the reason the Browns got him is because they needed somebody they can trust to get positive yards on first down no matter what. That's what he was drafted here to do. Jerome Ford's not that guy. We don't know if Dillon Sampson's that guy, but it's not likely. Pierre Strong's not that guy, right? And that was one of the Browns' biggest problems. You're talking about a run game that has been at the bottom, or not the bottom, at the top, unfortunately, at negative yard runs in the NFL over the last couple of years. So not having Judkins is going to affect them if they don't have a suitable replacement. Now, if he's only out 6 weeks versus 12 weeks or whatever it's going to be, that starts to make a bit of a difference. But that whole Judkins situation, not good. Now, if Dillon Sampson steps up, looks like a feature back, then that puts some of the pieces back into a proper place. But if that's not where they are, then yeah, I have real concerns about the run game. Now, they're going back to a lot of gap scheme stuff, so maybe they're just hoping that the offensive line is going to really kick a lot of ass, make it easy for these running backs. I don't know. We'll see if that pays out. The wide receivers, I'm less concerned about, given that I think most of these targets are going to be split between Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, with Tillman probably getting third in those targets. I think that they have a pretty solid top end to that receiving conversation that I'm not really worried about the bottom end not being great. For me, it comes down to this run game. How much better is this offensive line going to be in the run game, and how much of a difference does that make? If this offensive line can produce and move guys on the line of scrimmage at a high level, then we got nothing to worry about. But if that's not the case, then we got a lot to worry about. So, yeah, I feel you there. All right, let's go into the next one. This is from Ron Wright, who says, the Judkins arrest was the here we go a moment of the season before they even take the field. This was definitely the bit of bad, like this had that twinge of bad Browns news, right? And we've all lived through it, right? Where LaCharles Bentley pops his ACL, never plays again after being the marquee free agent signing in the first day of minicamp. Like we've all had those kind of moments. I would argue that Quincy Judkins, there are more significant players on this roster than him. Like, again, he was going to be important to what the Browns want to do in a run game. There's ways to kind of demitigate him, but he was very important to that first down plan for them. And I'm not trying to act like he's not a big deal, but David Njoku's a bigger deal to this offense than him. Jerry Jeudy's a bigger deal to this offense than him. Myles Garrett is a bigger deal to the team than him. Denzel Ward's a bigger deal to the team. So it's not like, I think we're reacting like this is like the best player on the team. Like this is Nick Chubb. They got caught up in this. And I think this has a lot to do with our feelings about Nick Chubb no longer being on the team. But if I'm being real with you, it feels like people reacting to this Judkins story as if it's like a here we go again moment. That's a bit much for a rookie who we didn't know if he was going to be good, right? Like, we'll see what happens, what the impact ends up being. And I'm not saying it's not going to be insignificant. There's going to have some significance to the season. But Quincy Judkins alone wasn't going to make or break your season this year more than other things like Myles Garrett or, just overall play at the quarterback position. He would be a part of success, but I don't think you're going to fail strictly because you don't have Quincy Judkins. Like, I cannot believe the Browns' plan was, hey, we're not going to lean on the 2 former All-Pros that we have on offense. We're going to lean on a rookie that we took in the second round. That's where it starts to get a little outsized for me. All right, Anthony Latham says, we really need a kicker. Terrible kicking subtracts 3 wins versus average and good. I 100% agree with this. And look, I know over the years I've gotten into arguments with the internet over kicking the football in general, right? Like, people think I hate kickers, that I don't value them enough, and that, I think that kicking is a fraudulent aspect of the football game. And there might be some truth to that last part, but in reality, it is part of the game as we speak of it, and you have to factor in its importance. That doesn't mean that you draft kickers super early in a draft. I think the history on drafting kickers has proven that drafting a kicker is pretty much universally a stupid idea. But you do need somebody competent to fulfill that role. I've always been on that side. Honestly, I've been pretty harsh with my evaluation of kickers just because I'm like, hey, if he's missing them, then get rid of him. Find somebody who could do the fucking job. And I think that's the right way to view it. That's how teams find the good kickers, right? Like, none of these teams that have like these top tier kickers, very rarely are they teams that drafted them, right? Justin Tucker, before he got involved in all the stuff that he did, the Ravens found him, on the lottery, right? Like, they brought him in as an undrafted free agent. They didn't draft him, right? Phil Dawson was found by Cleveland as an undrafted free agent. Like, you just give guys opportunities and then somebody sticks. That's how you fix the kicking situation. And if you don't have good kicking this year, that's going to be a problem, right? We already talk about it. This is a low-yield type of offense that they're trying to run. And when you're running that low-yield style and you don't have good field goal kicking, that's how you end up saying, man, we were 4 plays away from being a 10-win team instead of actually being a 10-win team. So, yeah, I 100% agree. We need good kicking to have a good record this year. And my fear is that we're going to walk away from this season saying, hey, man, we could have made the playoffs if we had better field goal kicking. But we're going to end up being like a 6-win, 7-win team because our field goal kicking is awful. You really need that, right? Again, when we talk about what went wrong for the Browns last year, quarterback is over 50% of the problem. But the other 25% chunks, bad field goal kicking, bad blocking from the offensive line. You get better blocking and in general help from the offensive line. You get better play from your quarterback position, and you get better field goal kicking. You will be a better football team next year. That is why the team stunk last year. If you fix those things and address them at significant levels, you will not stink. And that will be much better for you. Next comment comes from Eck, who says, 553, making a great point about the Bengals clearly missing DJ Reader. I kind of get annoyed with people putting sack quotas on Mason's impact or chances to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. He didn't have a ton of sacks in college, but wreaked havoc. Yeah, there are some positions in football that are really hard to quantify. And in general, the average media person and the average fan alike have a really hard time understanding why those players are important. And because they can't understand it, they end up devaluing the position when that's not accurate, right? That to me, I think is one of the biggest flaws of how we talk about football in general. So everything's so much about what's quantifiable, what you can put a number on, what somebody has decided deserves a number you can put next to it, and placing too much importance in that. When a position like defensive tackle is very simple, right? You're there to disrupt that first level of whatever a team is trying to accomplish, whether it be pass or run. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the guy that gets the pass breakup, or you're going to be the guy that gets the sack, or you're going to be the guy that gets the TFL on a run play, or even the run stop. But it does mean that you play an integral part to fucking up the play that the offense was trying to run, right? And that's what Mason Graham does. He's mess it up, right? I think Chris Sims calls it team F it up, or he uses the explicit version of that. I'm going to try to keep my F word to one per video if I ever drop one, right? So I'm going to limit myself to one F word per video. And that's what Mason Graham is, right? Like if you are an offensive line coach, you hate guys like Mason Graham because he just messes everything up. Think about a play. I think I brought this up in a video that I'm going to release, I think on Monday, about the Browns' plans to run GH counter, right? And I'm just going to bring this play up here to try to like demonstrate to y'all exactly how this defensive line stuff can just affect and destroy what a team wants to do on a very basic level. Let me pull it up right here. All right, so on the screen right now is a concept called GH counter to run play. Now, what you see here is what the scheme is for it, right? You have a tight end that's coming down the line to handle anybody who's scraping on the back end. You have a tight end on the back side of the play who is coming across of it to kind of be a lead blocker, the rat player. You have a guard that's pulling to the other side of the field. And all of this creates a mechanism for the offensive line that will open up a hole for the running back to run through. But all of this can be disrupted right now if 91 puts this guard on his ass that's supposed to be pulling, because all of a sudden that guy doesn't pull, there's nobody there, and this linebacker number 45, he can just slide into that hole with no resistance and get the TFL. Now, 45 gets the credit for the tackle on that play. And when you watch it on TV, you're like, oh, great play by our linebacker. He's balling out. Mahmoud Diabite got to the spot. What a great player. But what really happened was 91 put that guard on his ass. Nobody came, filled that spot, and play was screwed up, right? If 95 works through this down block from this tackle and just blows up that tight end who's supposed to be rapping on the counter, then that running back's going to get the ball and he's going to look for the tight end because this is his seeing guy, right? He's supposed to follow the hip of the tight end on the rap block on the counter. He's going to stutter and boom, 45 can shoot through that gap and get to the backfield, make a big play on the run. And we're like, oh, what great instincts by that linebacker. And we're going to give the linebacker all the credit on the play. But what really happened was 95 put that tight end on his ass. It doesn't even have to be as demonstrative at times of a tight end putting somebody, or of a defensive tackle putting the tight end on his ass. It could be something as simple as 91 climbs to this guard, holds him up a little bit, which puts him out of sync with this rat block in the running back. He makes him late to the play, which makes it an easier play for one of the defensive linemen to jump onto. This is the stuff that defensive tackle play can have a huge impact on, and this is what Mason Graham did at a high level at Michigan, where he just, everything you tried to do, right? So it made it so if you're running the ball against Michigan, you can't run things like counter or inside or outside zone that require multiple moving pieces on the line of scrimmage because you're simply not winning. You now have to just submit and go to very basic run concepts where it's just man on hat. And that's all you're worried about. It takes out so many pulls and everything else, which limits another team's run game. And that's just one aspect of how a defensive tackle can affect the game. We don't have a stat to put next to a defensive tackle, so I think a lot of people have convinced themselves they're not as impactful as edge rushers. They're not as impactful as linebackers. I would make the argument that a defensive tackle is as integral to your team as an offensive lineman or an offensive tackle, right? Because it can all get screwed up by a great defensive tackle. You know, there's different ways of doing it, but trust and believe, a top tier disruptor, maybe you don't hear about it that much because, you know, on the national broadcast, Tony Romo's not bringing this up, right? But I promise you, You talk to offensive line coaches, ain't nothing they fear more than a hellraiser on the interior of the defensive line. Nothing screws up the run game like having a hellraiser on the interior defensive line. And we've seen it, right? Where if the Browns don't have that hellraiser in the interior, teams can just run away from Myles Garrett and take him out the game. And people are asking, where's Myles, right? Because he got taken out the game because you had nobody to really raise any hell, or all of these run schemes that teams want to do are working because they're able to just get all these parts in place. Get a hellraiser in there, all of a sudden that stuff doesn't happen as much. So yeah, defensive tackle play is just one of the most underrated, most valuable pieces to your team. Look, and you made this point for me, but Cincinnati losing DJ Reader made a massive impact to how that defense looked without him. We don't understand it, so we convince ourselves it's not valuable. That's not a good way to operate. There's a lot of things I don't understand that I do understand are valuable, right? Defensive tackle play is valuable. Just because we can't quantify it or understand it as much as other positions doesn't mean that that position itself, having a great player at that position, is not valuable. And yeah, people using sack quotas and stuff, that doesn't matter, right? Unless you're voting for Mason Graham to be Defensive Rookie of the Year or Defensive Player of the Year. That'll affect that because that's the only way that people get those awards, if they have those accounting stats. But I'm telling you right now, defensive tackle play, that's not what it's about. The high sack numbers, that's not why Aaron Donald's one of the greatest of all time. That disrupting stuff, though, that's why. Right? When you hear Jason Kelce talk about how much he hated Aaron Donald and how much Aaron Donald hated Jason Kelce, it's because how much those guys were just disrupting whatever it is that you wanted to do by being able to just put somebody in the ground or take a guy off a plan or get a guy to have to slow down just a little bit. That's the kind of stuff that really affects things in the trenches. And yeah, that's what Mason Graham is drafted to be because that's what he did really well at Michigan. That's what Nick Saban praised about him, right? Names that we know what they're talking about when it comes to this stuff. 97 Buckeye guy says, I'm all for playing one of the veterans in the first 6 weeks of the season. But if we go to the start of the season with 4 quarterbacks on the roster, Barry and Stefanski would be out of their minds not to play the rookies the most of the rest of the season. I'm still of the opinion that Joe Flacco should not see the field unless these 3 are totally unserviceable. Flacco is one and done as a player. He wouldn't be back next season. I think you can make the argument with Kenny Pickett too, though. We need to find out if we have any belief at all in Kenny Pickett real fast. Gabriel Sanders need to play some time, and the team can decide what they want to do and get away with not picking a quarterback in the next first round next season. I am going to go out on a limb here and say something before I think it is popular to say it. And this is going to mean that I get criticized for like most of this year until magically the draft comes along and then everybody's saying what I'm saying. This has happened more than once, but I don't think it matters what Dillon Gabriel does, what Shedeur does in the Browns' decision to draft a quarterback. I don't think Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders are going to stop the Browns from taking a quarterback in the first round next season. Even if they're good, even if they're bad, I don't think it stops them. What stops the Browns from taking a quarterback next offseason in the first round is value, straight up. Do they feel like they're reaching for a quarterback? If they feel like they're reaching for a quarterback, then they won't take a quarterback. But if they feel like they are well within the range of this quarterback's talents to take this quarterback at a certain position, they will take that quarterback. I think we're putting too much on the idea that Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders have an impact on what the Browns will do at quarterback next year. Think about it like this. Baker Mayfield had nothing to do with what the Browns want to do at quarterback in the future, right? Baker Mayfield had a great season in 2020, won 11 games with the team, and whether you think this process was correct or not, the Browns still decided to move off of him because they thought they saw better in Deshaun Watson. Like, this team told you what their philosophy is at quarterback, and it's ruthless. It's cutthroat. It's we got to get the best quarterback we can get no matter what. They showed you that that's their philosophy with Deshaun Watson. The main thing motivating that was we thought it was an upgrade. You know, they thought Deshaun was a top 5 quarterback. They did not think Baker was a top 5 quarterback. And even though they thought Baker was good, they thought Deshaun was better. They went with Deshaun. And to be fair, that was the consensus opinion at the time. There was some people, I would argue myself, debating that that wasn't as clear as people made it out to be. But that was the argument at the time, was that, hey, Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback. He was a top 5 MVP voting the last season he played. Baker Mayfield's not. They made the clear upgrade there. They have showed you who they are, right? So going into this offseason, you know, if Shedeur Sanders plays well enough for the Browns to be 500 or make the playoffs, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, it's Shedeur's team now. Not necessarily. They'll Drew Brees him, right? If they think that Lenore Sellers is a top 5 future quarterback and they think Shedeur Sanders is a future starter but not anything higher than that, they're going to draft Lenore Sellers and eventually replace Sanders with Lenore Sellers. Or if they feel that way about Cade Klubnik, they're going to replace Shedeur Sanders. Think of it like this. If you had, the Bengals had Andy Dalton on their team when they drafted Joe Burrow. They will replace what they think is good with what they feel like could be great at quarterback. Every team would. So this idea that, like, you got to see what Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur have to offer in order to know if you could draft a quarterback next year, I think is based on the flawed premise that that matters about what the Browns are going to do at quarterback. The Browns quarterback draft decision isn't going to come down to Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. It's going to come down to where are they selecting in the draft, what picks do they have access to, i.e., can they use that extra first-round pick to trade up to get whatever guy they want, and just how good are these guys coming out of college in 2026? It has nothing to do with Shedeur or Dillon. Like, at the end of the day, if they don't feel like anything's there, they could fall back on we got Shedeur and Dillon. But if the value is there, if the price is right for the quarterback that they want, and they feel like that quarterback can be a guy, an elite guy in the future, they're going to say, that's the plan. And Dillon and Shedeur will be battling to be the bridge quarterback. It does not matter what they do. Like, it's more about this next draft class and where the Browns land. That will decide what they do at quarterback. I know some people don't want to hear this, right? And not saying it's impossible that, like, Shedeur plays so well that the Browns aren't in a position to, like, here's how they can factor in. And I'll just leave this part here. If you're looking for a scenario in which it matters what Dillon or Shedeur does, it has to be that they play so good that they play the Browns out of position to get whatever quarterback they want, right? And the Jaguars pick doesn't net them that as well, right? But outside of that, right, and obviously if, like, Shedeur or Dillon prove that they can get you to the AFC Championship game or to the Super Bowl or win, then obviously you would just stick with them. But that's not very likely. I'm not going to act like that's a likely scenario. That's how they could factor it. They would have to literally play the Browns out of the ability to draft a quarterback. And that would put the Browns in a position where their options are being evaluated. And they're like, okay, well, it doesn't make sense to reach for a quarterback if we already have somebody who took us to the playoffs. But if the Browns aren't in a position like that, and let's say Shedeur looks good, but the Browns still have the second or third pick in the draft because of the Jaguars, or they have the access to that pick because the team's willing to trade and get that Jaguars pick, so the Browns can get a quarterback, then they're going to get a quarterback. Yeah. Has much less to do about the individual performance or the individual evaluation on Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders than it does about the evaluation of that draft class coming up. That's really the truth. If the Browns think Jaden Daniels is in that draft class, they think Lenore Sellers is Jaden Daniels, they're not gonna pass that up for a player that they passed on 3 times in Dillon Gabriel or a player that they passed on 5 times in Shedeur Sanders. They're going to take that guy. And I think all 32 teams make that same exact decision. Whether you like it or not, that's the business of the NFL. It's cutthroat at the quarterback. There is no sentimental favorite. There is no, you did good this year, we'll not take quarterback just because we want to protect your feelings. None of that shit matter. Are you the best we can get at quarterback? That is the only question that matters to NFL teams. And if the answer isn't yes, your job is always up for grabs. Right? Joe Burrow don't got nothing to worry about because he's the best the Bengals can get. Lamar Jackson doesn't have nothing to worry about because he's the best the Ravens can get, right? But if you aren't the best that team can get at quarterback, or the team's not convinced that you're the best that they can get, if they ain't ready to put a ring on it, basically, then you have nothing to feel secure about. That's the reality for Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur. They might play well enough to win 6 games this year and look pretty impressive. It doesn't mean anything if they feel like better's out there in the draft. So I agree with you, but I just don't think I don't think they need to play these rookies so much to make a decision. I think the decision's going to be made based on what that rookie class looks like, based on what they look like on Saturdays. They'll make that decision themselves because in a way, they've already kind of made a decision on Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur. If they thought that Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders were franchise-changing quarterbacks, they would have took them number 2 overall. They did not. So they've made a decision, right? And if they feel like somebody who is worthy of that number 2 overall pick or a top 5 pick is available and they have access to that guy, well, that tells you what they're going to do. They've already made their decision. I don't think 6 games or 7 starts of Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel apiece are going to change anything. I think we're overestimating just how much that matters. And I don't think it does. But that's it for Hot Takes. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think it matters what Dillon and Shedeur look like? Or do you think it matters more, like me, what these rookies look like or these potential rookies look like during the college football season? If Francisco Mendoza looks like the number 1 overall pick during the college football season, do you think that the Browns are going to say no to a top-level prospect because they got somebody they feel decent about? I don't think anything indicates that they would do such a thing. And I think you could just go back to Baker Mayfield to let you know how the Browns will operate. They're going to aggressively and ruthlessly and cutthroat seek an upgrade at the position no matter what. They've told you who they are. I mean, remember, they were looking to try to trade for Aaron Rodgers after Baker Mayfield had his 2020 season. If they think they can do better, they're going to look for it. That's really it. So unless these guys play so good that the Browns don't think they could do better than them, which is not very likely from a 3rd or a 5th round pick, then the reality is that they're going to seek an upgrade. Doesn't mean that there's going to be no opportunity for Shedeur or Dillon, but it does mean that the priority of the franchise isn't developing either of those guys. The priority of the franchise is find somebody you truly believe in who can be a franchise quarterback. If one of these guys emerges, then cool, we'll change the focus onto them. But right now, I think they're thinking that guy's going to be in the draft next year. You let me know what you think in the comment section below, but y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.